Alright, when we're walking on the cottage panel, we want to stay on the bottom nose of each course. You can walk just like so. Alright, when we're doing our layout with our cottage panel, you can see about 13 inches in from my left side, we have what we call a hip point. Now we'll just go ahead and take the left side of my next panel as I'm going up with my stagger. And like I said, it's approximately 13 inches from the edge. The following is our standard method when we're fastening our cottage panel. If you're in a high wind zone, make sure you look at the manual and adjust accordingly. So every full panel is going to have 6 fasteners. I got them marked here in white chalk, as you can see. We'll have 2 in the back, so I got 1, 2 in the back. And then we'll have 1 on our side lap when it overlaps another panel. And then we'll have the 1, 2, 3 along the front nose. Now this is a left to right panel. So you can see here, left to right only. So I got my side lap that's going to be underneath the panels with these ribs. Next panel comes over the top and fits nice and tight, just like so. If I'm too far one way and see a rib, or too far this way, it's not going to sit down nice and tight. So make sure we're where we need to be on that side lap. Now you can see the bottom row. Since we have our 1/2 inch overhang, we're going to go down through the top. So you can see they're marked in white here, 1, 2, 3. So they're just going to go down. You can go about 2 inches up from the edge and go down into the decking. Okay? And then you can see overlap the next panel, come back with the same idea. Now on the bottom row, or anytime you go down through the top behind like a chimney or a skylight, we're going to go ahead and take our caulking. Okay? We're going to caulk those fasteners. And then we're going to come back with our touch-up granules and put that to cover that caulking up. Just to give it a little extra protection and make it look nice. Now when we get to the second row and the rest of the roof, we're going to be coming down through the front nose. So you can see when I overlap a panel here, I'm going to have my fasteners in the front nose, 1, 2, 3. Since we're overlapping a panel, we'll have 1 in our side lap, and then we'll have 2 on top. So just to demonstrate how these go in, you can see in the front nose here, we're going to make sure the panel's pushed down, go down on an angle to get back down into the decking. Just like so. On our side lap, same idea. We're just going to come in the side lap, make sure it's pushed down, come down on that angle to get that fastener into the decking. And then once we get to our top row, so you got 1 and then 2 here. We go down, we just want to make sure we don't over tighten this. Keep that just shy of the decking on that back shelf. And then we'll continue with our fasteners. As you can see here, once we overlap our panel, same thing on the bottom in the side lap. Same here, make sure my side lap's good, and then we'll fasten as normal. Alright, option 2 on our stagger. You can see if this is our rake line or straight edge. We're going to go ahead and do a full panel, 13 inches from our rake. 3, 10 inches, 18, and then back to a full. The following is our standard method when we're fastening our cottage panel. If you're in a high wind zone, make sure you look at the manual and adjust accordingly. So every full panel is going to have 6 fasteners. I got them marked here in white chalk, as you can see. We'll have 2 in the back, so I got 1, 2 in the back, and then we'll have 1 on our side lap when it overlaps another panel, and then we'll have the 1, 2, 3 along the front nose. Now this is a left to right panel, so you can see here, left to right only. So I got my side lap that's going to be underneath the panels with these ribs. Next panel comes over the top and fits nice and tight, just like so. If I'm too far one way and see a rib, or too far this way, it's not going to sit down nice and tight. So make sure we're where we need to be on that side lap. Now you can see the bottom row. Since we have our 1/2 inch overhang, we're going to go down through the top. So you can see they're marked in white here, 1, 2, 3. So they're just going to go down. You can go about 2 inches up from the edge and go down into the decking. Okay? And then you can see overlap the next panel, come back with the same idea. Now on the bottom row, or anytime you go down through the top behind like a chimney or a skylight, we're going to go ahead and take our caulking. Okay? We're going to caulk those fasteners. And then we're going to come back with our touch-up granules and put that to cover that caulking up. Just to give it a little extra protection and make it look nice. Now when we get to the second row and the rest of the roof, we're going to be coming down through the front nose. So you can see when I overlap a panel here, I'm going to have my fasteners in the front nose, 1, 2, 3. Since we're overlapping a panel, we'll have 1 in our side lap, and then we'll have 2 on top. So just to demonstrate how these go in, you can see in the front nose here, we're going to make sure the panels push down, go down on an angle to get back down into the decking. Just like so. On our side lap, same idea. We're just going to come in the side lap, make sure it's pushed down, come down on that angle to get that fastener into the decking. And then once we get to our top row, so you got 1 and then 2 here. When we go down, we just want to make sure we don't over tighten this. Keep that just shy of the decking on that back shelf. And then we'll continue with our fasteners. As you can see here, once we overlap our panel, same thing on the bottom in the side lap. Same here, make sure my side lap's good, and then we'll fasten as normal. Alright, when we're doing our cottage direct to deck, do the following setup. We're going to put our drip edge along our eave, come back with our code approved underlayment over the top of that drip edge. Then we'll come back with our rake drip, make sure we wrap our corners. Then we'll come back with our rake channel. Make sure we squeeze that to a true 90 just in case it did get opened up during shipping. And we'll come back and we're going to go ahead and use that drip locator, put it on the side of the drip edge. We're going to fasten that with our washer fasteners every 16 inches. Make sure I have a minimum of a 3/4 inch overhang so the water's got somewhere to get out. Then we're going to come back with our gutterizer. We can go ahead and just butt that against our rake channel and go flush with my drip edge. Fasten every 16. And we need a 1/2 inch overhang with our cottage panel. So we're going to go ahead and mark our first line and chalk that to keep it nice and straight. So we can come up approximately approximately 13.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and measure that, mark it, adjust that accordingly if we needed more of an overhang. And then we'll go ahead and put that chalk line across, and then we're ready to start paneling. All right, we're ready to measure our rake panels. Go ahead and find a profile in the panel to measure from, not the edge, but the profile. Then we'll go ahead and measure into that channel, minus a 1/4 inch when we're going into the channel. That way we don't fight it when we're installing it. Once we get that measure, go ahead and write that down. We'll start measuring each panel as we're going up, writing them down in order from eave to ridge. All right, so once we get our list from the measurements up on the roof, come down here, we're going to do our rake first. We're going to find that profile in the panel. and we're going to measure our top and our bottom. Create a straight line, and you'll be ready to go through the cutter. After we're done cutting those, just reform the front nose and the back shelf. Then we're going to go ahead and put that in our pile. We'll have our pile in order from the eave to the ridge. We'll hand that up to the roof to install. Alright, once we get ready to install our rake panels, we'll get our pile. After done cutting them, they'll be in order from the eave to the ridge. And we'll go ahead and just start taking them off the pile and installing them. Just make sure we're reformed when we're putting that into that rake channel. Just slide them in and continue to fasten as normal. Bottom row, we go down through the top. Make sure we don't put any fasteners in where that rake channel is. And make sure we get our top fasteners in as well. And our side lap. Then we'll just take the next panel off of our pile and continue up the roof. Make sure my side laps are looking good. And start fastening those panels as normal. Then just continue all the way up to your ridge. Alright, so when we're setting up our two-piece valley, we'll do the following steps. So option one, after I get my drip edge on, go ahead and bring my two-piece valley together. And then I can just bring this down, make sure my entire width is overhanging a minimum 1 inch. And I can go ahead and notch out that drip edge. Fasten with my washer screws every 2 feet on the outside. No fasteners in here. Okay? And then we can go ahead and just install panels as normal. The other option is going to be using our flat stock to make a valley extension. So you can just see putting a fold on this guy, water stop on either side. Now I can go ahead and put this on. If I'm going to use this, go ahead and grab your caulk gun. Go ahead and throw a couple lines of caulking on the extension. And then we'll go ahead and slide our two-piece into place. And then we can go ahead and install our valley pan with our washer and screws every 2 feet. And then we can come back, bring our gutter riser, and we'll bring that flush with our drip edge and bring it flush with our valley metal for our extension pan. Now in treat areas, we recommend using our M-seal inside of our J-pan. That way debris will not get inside the system and clog it up. So we're just going to bring that inside that J-pan on either side. The entire length of my valley. and then we'll be ready for our panels. Once we get all our filled panels in, we're going to go ahead and come back and measure our valleys. So we're going to measure a top measurement and a bottom measurement. And we're going to go ahead and find our profile, not the edge of the panel, but the profile of the panel is where we'll measure from. So we'll come in, we'll measure our bottom into our two-piece, and then measure our top as well. Once we get those measurements, go ahead and write those down. Make a list from eave to ridge with the two measurements, and then we'll continue up the roof, measuring each panel as we go, and then writing those down on our lists. We're cutting our valleys for our two-piece valley. Go ahead and take our list that we have our measurements on from the roof. Find that profile, measure from the back shelf and the front shelf. Mark our bottom, mark our top, come back with our straight line. We'll take it to the cutter. Remember, we need to dog ear our top on our valley cuts. We can do that as well. Reform the bottom and the back shelf. Then we'll come back and put that in our pile. And that pile will be in order from eave to ridge. We'll hand it up ready to install. Alright, once we get our pile, after cutting our panels, go ahead and bring that up to the roof, and they're going to be in order from eave to ridge. Then we can just start installing these panels. We're going to tuck those into our two-piece valley, and then we can start fastening as normal. Bottom row will go down through the top, and we'll also get one in our top rows close to the valley. And we can also get our fasteners in our side lap here as well. Go ahead and get the next panel from our pile. Getting them in our side laps as well. And the tops of the panel. Always get one as close to that valley pan as possible. Make sure we don't put any panel fasteners over our valley pan. If we need to stitch these together, we'll go ahead and get our 3/4 inch stitch screw. And we can stitch those together. That way we do not put any holes in our valley pan. And then just make sure that all the panels, we dog ear our top row. And just keep installing those until we finish up to the ridge. Alright, once we get all our panels on, we're going to go ahead and take ice and water, butyl tape, some kind of sealing tape to seal my joint on my two-piece. We'll place that one down. Then we're going to come back with our valley cover. You can choose to put a fold down if you want. If you do a fold down, just make sure we're not cutting off our water exit. Overhang it a little bit so that water's got somewhere to get out. Now it's just going to be centered over that two-piece valley. And then we'll come back with our 3/4 inch stitch screw. And we're going to go ahead and place that and stitch that to the two-piece. Then we're going to go ahead and do each row of panels. And continue that up the roof. Alright, we're measuring our hips for cut and tuck on the Cottage. We're going to first of all want to find that profile bend on the edge, not the very edge of the panel, but where that bend is on the profile. And then we're going to measure our bottom, and we're going to measure our top at the bends. And we're going to get as close to that hip line as possible. Now once we get that measurement, we'll come down, we'll write it down on our scrap paper, and then we're going to measure each one in a row from the eave to the ridge and write those down in order. And then we'll take that list down and do our cutting. Alright, when we're cutting our hip for our cut and tuck method, we'll go ahead and get our measurements we got from the roof. Then we're going to find our profile. Then we'll go ahead and get those measurements on the bottom shelf, and then also on the top shelf as well. And we can go ahead, get us a straight line. Go ahead and bring it to your cutter. Reform those front and back shelf, and we can bring it to our pile, and we'll have our pile in order from eave to ridge, handed up for installation. Once we get our pile, after done cutting it, we're going to go ahead and bring that up on the roof. It should be in order from eave to ridge. And we're going to go ahead and just start installing our hip panels, making sure they're nice and tight. Make sure we're following our chalk lines, keeping everything straight. Bottom row, go down through the top. And make sure we get our top fasteners in as well. We'll go ahead and just take our next panel. And just continue up the roof. Continue to the ridge. Fasten as normal. Alright, we're cutting our head wall or our ridge, directed deck cut and tuck. We'll go ahead and get our measurements we got from the roof, and we'll come back. We're going to go ahead and measure this guy. You can measure on either side, and that will be a cut line. And go ahead, make a straight line across there. And you can bring it over to the cutter. And you can go ahead and hand that up on the roof, ready for installation. When we're doing our ridge panels, you can go one of two ways. One way you can go and you can measure where your ridge is and do a 2-inch fold over if you'd like. The other option would be just to cut it straight off. Either one's acceptable. And how we install these, we'll just come in, it's a left to right panel, so we'll get a fastener on the left side. And we'll go ahead and make sure it's laying nice and straight. And then we'll get one on the right side. And then go ahead and push down the middle and finish off the middle. Then a couple fasteners at the top. Alright, if we're doing a ridge vent, go ahead and cut your decking out to get that airspace going. And then we're just going to cut our panel, just like so. Now depending on where this hits, you might need to add a 1x2 or 1x4 to make sure to stay in the same plane. You can also use the top of the panel that I've cut off here and go ahead and place that down as well. So either one works. Then we're just going to go ahead and place that panel. Getting fasteners in the front nose just like normal. And down through the top as well. Once we get that done, then we need to either do caulking along the top here. We can use our M-seal and place our M-seal there, or we can choose to do a butyl tape as well. And that's just so we don't get any wind-driven rain underneath our venting material. Alright, once we get our panel on and our M-seal or butyl tape underneath, we'll go ahead and start installing our vent. We want to make sure this stays the same plane as our roof, so our cap will match our roof. And then we're going to use our 2.5 inch panel screw to get back down into the decking. Getting fasteners in all of the recommended fastening points. And then we'll be ready to do our caps. First cap, we'll just overhang our rake channel. We'll use stitch screws so we don't put any holes in that rake channel underneath. You can see how I'm covering my ridge vent with my cap. And once again, we'll be using our 2.5 inch screws to get down back into the decking. About 2 inches up on either side. We'll go ahead and put those fasteners. And then we'll continue fastening across the ridge. Alright, when we're doing hip with our cottage cap, we're going to go ahead and bring our panels tight to the hip line. Then we're going to go ahead and take our barrier foam, put that in the center of that hip line, and we'll take the cottage cap, we're going to find our angle, and you can see we're going to do a 3D bend where it's going to hook that panel. Let's go ahead and hook that first one. Just like so. Chalk a line to make sure we're keeping everything straight. And then we'll come back with our fasteners. And make sure we don't over tighten or under tighten the cap, keeping it nice and flat. And then we'll just continue along our chalk line. Up to our ridge. Alright, when we come to a junction of two hips and a ridge, we'll do the following steps. So first we're going to find our center line. Come in here with my first cap. Go ahead and notch that cap out to that center line. Fasten as normal. 1.5 inches in from either side. So next we're going to find our miter from our peak coming down straight. And we're going to go ahead and throw some caulking underneath this one. And then that miter, we'll center that with our ridge line, laying down into that caulking. Fasten that on either side. then we're going to go ahead and just notch one of our cottage caps, make a slice up the middle there, and then can fold that over. And once again, we'll lay that in caulking. Come back, center that over that center line, into that caulking, and go ahead and put a fastener on either side. So then when we continue our rest of our ridge, we're going to want to use our barrier foam, place that underneath our caps, center that up, and then our cap will just sit right on top, and then we'll go ahead and fasten on either side, about 1.5 to 2 inches in on either side, getting down into the decking. And then just continue capping across. All right, when we come to a junction of 2 rakes and a ridge, we're going to want to go ahead and miter our rake channel. As you can see here, just make sure it's a nice straight line coming down and make a nice clean look. Once I get all my panels on, then we come back with our cottage cap. You got a couple options here. You can go ahead and fold the panel down here, creating a miter, keeping that straight line. And that'll just sit right over the top, like so. The other option will just go ahead and bring your panel or cottage cap right over the top, just like so. Both are acceptable options. Now when we're dealing with a non-vented ridge, we're going to go ahead and use our barrier foam, and we're going to center that down over the top of our ridge panels, and then we're going to go ahead and bring our cap over the top of that. Now on this first cap, since we're going into the rake channel, we're going to use 3/4 inch stitch screws. So we're going to pierce the rake channel underneath, and then from here on out, then we'll use our panel screws. Make sure we're bending our cap to make sure it's the same plane as the rest of the roof, and then we'll go ahead 1.5 inches in. We're going to go ahead and put those screws in on either side. And then we can go ahead and continue down our ridge line. When we come to the skylight or chimney with our directed deck cut and tuck on the cottage, do the following steps. We're going to go ahead and get our first panel up to our head wall. You can choose to fold that up or just cut it straight off, either one works. And then you're going to go ahead, take your caulking or a butyl tape, caulk across that line, or like I said, butyl tape will work as well. And then we're going to use what we call our head sidewall metal. We're going to go ahead and fold my corners on either side, place that into that caulking or butyl tape, and we can fasten into our head wall. And then you can take our sidewall underpan, and you can either decide to choose that to bring that all the way past our corner about 1/2 inch. Depending on where the coursing lines up, a good option is to use our flat stock and create an extension like so. So that way the only thing coming out is going to be our stone coated metal. So we're going to go ahead and throw caulking down this guy right here. And we can go ahead and place that. You can see anything behind the panel, we're going to create a water stop. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my sidewall underpan and just end it at that coursing, so that way you won't be able to see any of the colored metal. Back edge, we're just going to do a fold, good 3 or 4 inches past, make sure we got that going, and then we're going to go ahead and throw some caulking in this one. And then this will fit into that water channel that we've created with our extension. And then we're going to go ahead and use our washer screw in the pan here and fasten that down. Make sure you keep the fasteners on the outside, no fasteners on the inside here. Then we'll just come back with our panels, cut those straight off into my underpan and fasten as normal. Getting those fasteners in the front and the back. And when we get to our top panel, go ahead and extend out a good 3 inches past my chimney or skylight, and then just cut it straight off once again along that sidewall underpan. Make sure I don't put any fasteners in that sidewall underpan. Keep the fasteners outside of the pan. And once again, we'll do our fasteners in the front and back. Alright, so once we get our head sidewall metal on, our sidewall underpan, and our panels on, then we can go ahead and flash it. And we can use our head sidewall metal, same piece we use on our head wall. Come to our sidewall as well. You can see I got folds on the front and the back of the skylight. And then we can go ahead and place this, extend it past so I get a nice squared off look here. And then we can fasten into our sidewall. Now if we need to put any fasteners in through the noses of the panel, just make sure I'm using my 3/4 inch screw because there is a underpan underneath there. And then once we get to the back of the skylight or the chimney, we're going to use our flat stock and make a saddle pan. So you can see here I'm just going to fold in the back of my panel, get my measurement from the back of my panel to the skylight, and then you can fold this up 4 or 5 inches or more if needed. And then we're just going to go ahead and take our caulking, caulk across the top here, and this will set in just like so. And we can go ahead and fasten that in the back and also on the back shelf. Then we're going to go ahead and take our M-seal and put our M-seal on the back here, just along the back shelf. And the next panel will come over the top, and that will sandwich in there. Alright, we're going to use one of our easy vents. We're going to go ahead and cut out our hole to roughly 29 inches by 5 inches. We recommend putting a metal screen over the top, that way we don't get any insects inside the attic. Then we're just going to go ahead and grab our easy vent. We will go ahead on the top. We're going to use our M-seal to put this on top because this vent creates a flat back, so we just want to make sure we're protecting that. So we're going to put that one down there. This installs just like a panel. Just go ahead and use your same panel fasteners. Fasten down the front nose, one on the left, one on the right, middle, a couple in the back, and one on your side. And the next panel will just come over the top. And then go ahead and fasten that down through the top there. Caulk and chip those.
I'm doing this sandwich method on our pipes. We'll do the following process. Go ahead and take your base panel out around the pipe. And we'll take our caulking, do 3 sides. And we'll go ahead and form our panel to our pipe jack to our panel. Fasten that in place. Then we're going to go ahead and take our next panel and cut around that pipe jack. Like so. And we'll fasten that panel as normal. Then we'll come back with our caulking. Caulk around the tie our pipe jack and go ahead and take our granules and put our granules into that caulking.
The following is our split course method when we're doing a pipe. First, we'll go ahead and cut our bottom base panel out around the pipe. Then we're going to take our pipe jack, and anything behind that course, we're going to fold over on itself to create a water stop on all three sides, as you can see here. Then we'll come back with our caulking underneath that pipe. And we'll go ahead and place this. We can form this, trim this as needed. Fasten that down into the panel, here, into that caulking. Then we'll come back with our panel. We're going to go ahead and find our pipe and just cut around the pipe, like so. And then just fasten as normal. Then when we're all said and done, we'll come back. We're going to go ahead and do our caulking around our pipe. And then we'll take our granules, go ahead and put those into our caulking. We're doing a short course. We're going to go ahead and do our gutter riser on our eave just like normal. Do our rake channel on either side. And then we'll just make sure we extend our rake channel on the channel part 3 inches back underneath the panels here. Then we're going to go ahead and lay it out and figure out where our bottom row is. And then we'll go ahead, cut that one, place it, make sure I got my 1/2 inch overhang on my bottom row. And then we'll go ahead and fasten down through the top. And also get fasteners in our back shelf. Then just continue to run those panels across. Getting fasteners in the front and the back. Now, depending on where this course lies, you might have to take your rubber mallet and flatten that out, just so the next course will fit nice and tight. So you might have to flatten that out with that mallet. Then we're going to find out where our bottom row lies. We'll come back with our M-seal across the top there. And then put the next panel over the top. Go ahead and finish that up. Then on the bottom row, we'll go ahead and place those fasteners down to the top. Get those fasteners in the back shelf as well. Then we can just continue fastening as normal. Getting our bottom row here. And then once we get back up on this side, we'll go through the front nose. And then just remember that you're going to have to, any fasteners down through the top, we're going to caulk those and place our granules from our touch-up kit into that caulk on any fasteners going through the top of the panel. When installing the solar mount, we'll do the following steps. We're going to go ahead and find our rafter. And then once we find our holes, we want to pre-drill our holes. And then we'll come back with our caulking. Caulk those holes on that mount. We'll go ahead and place this with the lag bolts provided into our pre-ground nose, into the wrapper. And we can go ahead, just fasten as normal. Put our panel screws right over the top. And then the solar can be mounted onto the mount.
All right, when it comes to the dormer valley, with our two-piece valley, instead of having the painted metal come out on to the panels and be visible, we can go ahead and use our flat stock and create a valley extension. So we're going to want to flatten out this back rib. I think throw caulking across there. We'll also throw two beads of caulking on our extension. Let's go ahead and flake that where we want. Make sure we have at least 3/4 of an inch past my last panel and past my drip edge. We can fold that, whatever the situation calls for. Then we can come back with our washer and screws. So on either side. Then we can come back and start installing that panel. Big die. Fasten those. And then once we get everything fastened off completely, we're going to come back with our valley covered and using our 3/4 inch stitch screws. We'll go ahead, fasten that.
Alright, so our touch-up kit, we're going to go ahead and caulk our bottom row screws just on the top there. And we'll take our granules. We'll go ahead and throw that in there. And we can do that on any blemishes or any place that needs a little touch-up.